statistical, so unpredictable, here on SNL Stats.
Yes, that is right. SNL Stats is back for another week of off-week content. My name is John Schneider, and I am so excited to be with some very special guests tonight doing our By the Numbers show. If you haven't checked out last week's show, we had 4 of our superfans led by Sammy K. We also had Bill, Haskell, and Haynes. They decided to go back and analyze a bunch of digital shorts, hand out some awards. It was a really, really fun show. So if you haven't checked that out for our superfan takeover, go back and check out last week's show. And next week, I am very excited to announce for the first time, we are going to be doing some live trivia. That will be taking place next Sunday, March 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern. So if you're listening to that now, mark your calendars for next Sunday. It'll be really fun. You can come and join us in the chat, and we have a couple teams competing for live trivia. So a little bit more on that at the end of the podcast, but let's focus on what is happening tonight. Tonight, we're going to go over all the numbers, all the analytics. I mean, this is SNL Stats, and talk about everything that's happened in the last 5 episodes of SNL. And I am so excited to do that with the guy who does that with me every single time. He goes through the numbers and he crunches them for you. Mike Murray, our SNL screen time and stat guru. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well, John. Thanks for having me back.
Pleasure. How you doing? What's up with you? We haven't heard from you in about 2 months.
Not much. I mean, we got some good episodes in 2021, and the data set has grown, so that means we can analyze it and see what's going on.
Yes, exactly. And I'm really excited to see all the numbers and if there are a lot of changes that happened between 2020 and 2021. And I'm excited to break it down with somebody who hasn't been with us on the By the Number shows before, but has been with us for a bunch of roundtables. He is an expert in all things SNL. He's an actor, a host, an improv and sketch producer. Dave Buckman, welcome to the By the Number show. How are you?
Thanks for having me again, John. I love it here.
We're always happy to have you. What's new with you? We haven't heard from you in a few weeks.
Yeah, things have been going well. Cold Town Theater getting back on its feet. We're looking for a new venue for next year. We have Austin Sketch Fest coming up in April, an online version of the Sketch Festival. We got awesome headliners, Kevin Pollak and Atsuko Akatsuka and Meg Statler going to do some online shows for us, as well as some UCB troops and Second City troops. So we're excited. We're excited to still be online and hope to be back in person doing stuff this summer.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure a lot of theaters all around the country feel the same way. So it's really nice that we're making a little bit of progress towards getting things back to normal. Dave, I know that you are down in Texas, I believe, and Texas was like a little rough. It had some things happen in the last few weeks. Everything okay with you and your family?
We're all good now. Yeah, it was rough. We went 75 hours without electricity in the cold, and that was an adventure for me and my wife and our cats. But we survived and. We're thriving now. So
exactly. That's exactly what we want to hear. So let's get to it. So for those who haven't joined us for a By the Number show before, Mike does something really cool. He looks at the cast and he watches the shows and he says, hey, some people might find certain sketches funny. Some people might hate the same sketches. But what can we all agree on is objective numbers, and take a look at who's doing well on the show, which cast members are getting screen time and which cast members are in important roles. And he has come up with a ranking system to rank the cast members based on how well they're doing during the current season. So Mike, let me bring you in, if you don't mind, for people who haven't heard from you before and don't know about your rankings, and maybe, Dave is joining us for the first time. Maybe he wants to hear a little bit more too. Tell us about your rankings and how you go about them.
All right, it's pretty simple. It's based on 2 main metrics. One is screen time, and then the second is appearances. So what I do is I just count how many times they appear in the show, and if they're a lead role, supporting role, small role, or an off-screen role, like a voiceover. And so they get their own independent values. I just tabulate all those together. They get a percentage of that ultimate value. Then I average that in with their screen time percentage, which is the entire show, minus musical performances, commercials, intro, good nights. And I get a percentage of how much they were on screen for that episode. Take that number, take it with the appearance number, average them together, and then that's their score.
Yeah, and we have made some adjustments over the season. Like we have weighted, things that are happening in prime time. So anything that happens, pre or during update, that's prime time because you have a lot of viewers that are watching the episode then, and some people turn off the show after update even. So we consider, you getting a role pre-update as a more important role. So little adjustments like that. We've also added a bonus if someone comes out as a recurring character or recurring impression, because that's a sign that the show is willing to trust you to bring out a character that they've seen before, or trust you with a political impression or something like that they've done before. So those are things that are important to note. I think that the first thing that we're going to do, Mike, as you told me, was you wanted me to bring up the current rankings that we have after, the first, what are we at now? We're at 14 episodes?
14, yep.
Yeah, the first 14 episodes of the season. So we're going to take a look at those rankings. Let me bring those up on screen. All right, so we divided these rankings up into two. There you go. Okay. So these rankings are up on screen. We divided them in two. We did the top half and the bottom half. So if you are watching the video on YouTube now, you'll see the top half of the rankings. So Dave, let me bring you in here to talk about this. We see that we have our average is about 57.41 for the rankings. I'm going to read out some of the numbers for the people who are listening on audio. So we have Kate, who's at the highest. She's at 102.6. Beck at 96.6. Keenan at 89.4. 80, 78.4. Colin 75.4, Mikey 72.7, Cecily 69.2, Ego 67.1, Che 63.1, Pete 60.4, and Heidi at 59.8. Our average is about 57. So all these cast members are above average. Are there any cast members that stand out to you from this list?
Well, yeah, certainly because Adi and Cecily were gone for so long that they just kind of bounced right back in there. And I would expect Pete and Heidi to be higher, but I guess compared to these legends, their ranking goes down a little bit. I thought I'd seen a lot more of them recently. Surprised to see Adi and Cecily so high with the amount of shows that they missed.
So I'll note that I didn't. I put a little note at the bottom. I know it's small on the screen here, but that I didn't count the episodes they were offsite against them to get a more realistic number about when they're on the show, what do they usually score?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense now because when they're there, they're large and in charge. So of course, these are all their lead actors in most of the sketches. These are all people that write for themselves and have recurring characters to play. So and front loaded in those cold opens as well.
For sure. And I mean, if you were going to look at our current cast, we have 20 cast members right now, and a lot of people are complaining about cast size, right? So you said, what happens if we cut the cast in half? Like, and there's a lot of ways to do that. You could pick your favorites. You could do it by longevity. But if you were going to do it simply by objectively, how well are they doing on the show? These are your top 10 cast members for the season. So Mike, is there anyone here that you want to particularly highlight as impressive that they are above our average for the season?
Well, I'll note too that Jost and Shay, they always, unless they're in a sketch, they always get just one lead appearance for that episode. But Jost's screen time is just so much more than Shay. I have Jost at 74 minutes and Shay at right under 60 minutes. So that's the reason for that. I guess I like to see. I'll just point out Keenan, that Keenan is in season 18, and he is. If you look at any given sketch, he's the most likely to make an appearance. So the fact that Keenan's top 3 in season 18 clearly hasn't lost his fastball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very true. And look, this is our top 10. I want to bring up our bottom 10 because this is a good conversation starter as we start to get deeper into the numbers. But I'll read out the top 10 one more time for anyone who's listening on audio. So we have Kate, Beck, Keenan, Adi, Jost, Mikey, Cecily, Ego, Che, Pete, and then Heidi coming in at number 10. So I'm going to bring up our bottom 10, which will be interesting to see because there are some people in the bottom 10 who have been performing on the show for a while now, and we would like to talk about them. So we have our bottom 10 up on screen, and these are people who are under average. So we have Chris Redd, who's at a 49.8. Remember, the average is 57. Kyle Mooney, 45.9. Chloe, 43.1. Bowen, 41.2. Moffat, 38.9. Melissa 26.4, Dismukes 25, Lauren 23, and Punky at 19.5. So those are our 3 feature players, all at the bottom. Dave, what stands out to you here?
Well, to me, obviously Alex is so low, and Melissa so low, given their tenure, how long they've been on the show so far. They and Kyle certainly, but Kyle's very relegated to a lot of 10-to-1 sketches and sketches cut for time. Seem to be Kyle's wheelhouse. Certainly, Melissa under 30 is heartbreaking. Seeing that she's been there for 5 years. But when you have a cast of 20 plus Jim Carrey, plus Maya Rudolph, plus Alec Baldwin, that's what's going to happen. And I'm not surprised, just saddened.
For sure. Mike, what stands out to you here in our bottom half of the cast?
I feel like I like Chloe a lot this season, so I would have probably pegged her right around average. So I'm surprised to see her lower, but I think she's been doing well lately. And if she gets another like cold open anchor, then that'll bode well for her. But I mean, I don't really see any surprises here, but I feel like Chloe and Bowen in their second year, if you look at the numbers, they're like about double what the new rookies are. So that makes sense too.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Something to point out for our second year players, that they are slowly coming up the rankings. And then you would assume that in year 3, those guys would be above average. But I would say that the one thing that surprises me, and it's not surprising based on what we've seen, but Mike, when we last spoke in January, we had just come off this whole Moffat is now playing Biden thing. And that was something that was like, okay, we would expect that in your rankings, when we meet again in 2 months, Moffat will be above average. And clearly he hasn't been. He's seeing some screen time, but it's not enough. I think we're going to get into that a little bit more later. But Dave, do you have a comment there about, Alex still being in the bottom 5, even though he's playing our president now?
Yeah, well, Biden really hasn't done much to warrant a sketch. So until Biden messes up, or has some sort of scandal or some sort of like dominant news story other than fix everything, I don't know what they would write a sketch about at this point. That would lead off. I'm still waiting for that. And now I'm message from the president of the United States to see Alex come up there and open the season, open the show. But I don't think there's anything yet, except for the fact that he hasn't done a news conference yet. I think that might pop up. Hopefully in the next couple weeks of new shows.
Yeah, Mike, do you want to touch on that at all?
Sure. I mean, he was our prime, buy low, sell high candidate last time because of the Biden appearance. But I mean, I'll point out that we have Maya Rudolph coming up, so it'd be a great, Kamala and Joe chance right there. But I mean, Alex Moffat. I mean, if he was told you're going to be the president in the cast, then he could probably count on a lot of those appearances. But like Dave said, there probably hasn't been much or to mine for Biden yet to really, force it. We just got 5 years of Alec Baldwin, Trump, basically every cold open. So now if we don't have to do it president cold open, then, why force it? But Alex Moffat, I think in general, Biden aside, like he could get more of those, Tucker Carlson or characters like that he doesn't just have to be waiting in the wings to play Biden.
Yeah. I think that if you were, we recommended buying Moffat stock last time, and I think you got lucky. If you didn't buy it then, you could still buy it now, because I think that he will go up eventually. So our bottom 10, once again, is Chris, Kyle, Chloe, Bowen, Alex, Melissa, Dismukes, Lauren, and Punky. So that's our bottom 10 in the rankings right now. But, when we spoke in, the last episode of our roundtable, and we talked about, these 5 episodes, I think one of the themes that most of the panelists brought up was that this stuff that happened in the fall really felt like a different season almost. And I said, I really don't remember another season like that, where it almost felt like there was a 46A and a 46B. Just the feelings of the episode felt different. And, certainly an election had to do with that a lot, but I just felt like the No. There was something about the episodes that felt different. So one of the things I wanted to do with Mike was let's look at the numbers. Let's see what has changed between 2020 and 2021. So I'm going to bring up some charts to discuss that with you guys right now.
I will say in the meantime, I've been watching a lot of old seasons on Peacock, and I was just finished season 7, and season 7 is Michael O'Donoghue got fired as the head writer right after the Christmas episode, and there is such a 7A and 7B stark difference of writing style, energy, fun. It's literally between night and day.
Right. So the major difference there is there was a change in, I guess, the production of the show. So, but this we didn't have that. This we just had maybe cast members coming and going, and then we also had an election. So it'll be interesting to take a look at that. So let me bring that up. Let's bring up our next chart that we're going to take a look at from Mike tonight, and that is the season A versus season B chart that Mike sent me. So Mike, I have a bunch of numbers up on screen. Can you break down this chart for me and for the people who are listening on audio, what we're seeing in the differences for the cast members between the fall and now?
Sure. So I have a column of the cast members, and then they have their average as of right now after 14 episodes. Next column, it says first 9. It's that season A that you're calling. It's 2020 of season 46, and then the last 5. And then I did a percentage change between the two of them, so you can really tell, who's really booming and who's busting. So that's, of course, you got Dismukes at the top because he was so low in the beginning. So anything for him is a big change. But then at the bottom, you have Lauren Holt, who's also a rookie who was, in some cold opens, Karen Pence and things like that. And she's seen a big, fall with 80 coming back and other things like that. So that's what this chart is.
So Dave, when Mike sent me this earlier, I was this was fascinating for me because right away when you start with here are our rankings, we see that people like Dismukes and people like Moffat are at the bottom of the rankings. They're in the bottom 5, but the percentage increase in their average ranking in 2021 is so much higher, even though Moffat's not even playing Biden. So I was holding on to that nugget until we brought up this chart. But what does that say to you that we have, our biggest changes in some of the people that are the lowest of the rankings in 2021?
It just shows you how much time is being taken up by Baldwin and Jim Carrey, honestly. Those were the folks that were suffering the most from those first 9 episodes. Certainly not taking up 13 minutes of airtime at the top of the show allows other people to kind of get the writer's free attention. Certainly Andrew's benefiting from that. And Alex, of course, we knew he would get a little more screen time as a result, being a senior. I'm sad about Melissa still all the way down the bottom, having little screen time on this back 5. That seems criminal. And Heidi is very shocking as well. Maybe that's a result of Kate coming back, Cecily coming back and taking over a lot of those leads and sketches. Those are the things that stand out to me. Certainly Chloe's on the way up and Cecily coming back strong.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that obviously the Cecily and 80 factor, like them coming back into being regular parts of our show, have an impact on what we're seeing here. Because if you look at the bottom of the chart for anyone who's listening on audio, our bottom 3 is Heidi, Melissa, and Lauren, people who have the average has gone down in 2021. Heidi's 16 or almost 17% lower an average ranking score in 2021. Melissa is almost 21.5% lower, and Lauren is 57.5% lower. Obviously, a lot of comparisons between Lauren and 80, so you would think that there was a direct correlation there. We'll put a pin in that and talk about that in a little bit. But then at the top, the top 3, the people who have really stepped up. Actually, I'll make it a 4. So we have 4 in 2021. Cecily, obviously, we only count the episodes she was in, but in the episodes she was in, she's 40% higher. Mikey is 46, almost 47% higher. Alex is 61.5% higher. And Dismukes is 91.5% higher in the episodes in 2021.
Double the screen time.
I know, it's crazy. But what's great is people were asking us, especially on some of the live shows we were doing, they were saying, hey, is Andrew going to make it? And I said, yes, 100%. I mean, he was a writer. He came in, they know him. And you got to give him some time. So in the first 9 episodes, he was only getting 18.86 rankings, but now he's doubling his rankings. So I think it's true what Mike says when you looked at people like Bowen and Chloe who are in their second years. Like as you progress, the natural thing is that you're going to continue to grow. I think where we're seeing that not happen is with people like Melissa and Heidi, and maybe even potentially Ego if this continues, where some of the older cast members or cast members who've been around for a while stick around even past this year. That would be an issue. Mike, let me bring you in. Anything else from this chart you would like to talk about?
I'll just point out that if someone had a really strong start, that would obviously count against them for the second half if they just kind of flatlined. So, like, you know, we still see plenty of Beck and Kate, but they were just dominating the first the 2020 portion of the season. So the fact that we have all 20 cast members there and there's, you know, more to go around, that's why we're seeing them drop. Doesn't mean they're doing poorly. The purpose of this chart is not who's, you know, doing poorly or who's doing better, but just that what is the difference between season 46A and 46B. So I'll point that out. But other than that, I expected a lot more from Punky. I'll just point her out. Like, I think when we talked last time, John, that I was really into buying low on Punky, but then we haven't really seen too much of a change. Hers is one of the most similar scores, going from about 19 to about 20 and a half. So like only a 9% change.
Right. It's really nothing. And yeah, I mean, you talked about Kate and Beck. They're both in the red as far as losing ranking points this time. But like you said, they were just absolutely hitting home runs all of 46A. So that's important to point out. So next up, we're going to bring up a chart and we're going to talk about prime time percentage. So Mike, can you explain exactly what this means for the viewers?
Sure. This is one of the additions I made to my analysis this year, was weighting prime time percentage higher. So when I do the actual rankings, so we looked at the last two charts, that number is indicative of, like I said, appearances and screen time. But when I do the math, I take the screen time number, I take the prime time and I weight it in at 1.25. So just to give it a bump, because as you mentioned, John, that like, you know, my fiance will be asleep by update. So, you know, if you're watching the show live and you see the cold open, you see the first sketch, and you know, if you don't go on YouTube and look for the cut for time sketch or the 10-1 sketch, you'll probably never see it ever. So, but everyone's seeing the cold open and hopefully up to week update if you're watching live. So I labeled that prime time as between the cold open and update.
Yeah, so this is interesting because we saw that, like, for example, somebody like Dismukes had, 91% increase in his ranking in the second half of the season, but his primetime percentage is near the bottom. So for those listening along, you know, Colin and Michael are always going to be in primetime if they're always on updates. 100% of their screen time is primetime. But then next up, we have Cecily, who's at about 80%, Heidi, who's at almost 80%, Chloe, who's at 77.5%, Bowen is at 77.5%. Some players that are interesting to talk about who are at the bottom of some charts, but this chart, they're at the top. So, Dave, what stands out to you here where we have some players who are at almost 80% of their screen time is pre-update?
Yeah, so these don't count update at all. These do count desk pieces.
Cold open through update.
So yeah, excuse me. Cold open through update. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm looking at right now is a list of the people who do recurring weekend update rants, desk pieces, set pieces. What do we call them?
I guess correspondence. No, that would be Colin and Michael. I guess characters. Yeah.
Update characters and people who populate the opening sketches, of course. You know, Lauren had one update. Pete has only done one this season, I think, and everybody else on that list, except for Melissa, who's done a couple update pieces, but usually she only gets like a line or two in the episode. So of course her ranking is going to be a lot more lower. And we haven't seen anything on the desk from Punky or Andrew lately. So that makes sense to me. I mean, this list definitely makes sense to me. These are your impressionists. These are the people who are the characters. And these are the people that are doing the political stuff up top. So this list makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think one really standout on this list is near the bottom of the list. I mean, our bottom five, we have Melissa at 64, Alex at 61, Ego at 57, almost 58, Andrew 47.8, Punky 43.8. Is the Ego line. Ego at 57.7. So the big talk this season on all of the roundtables, when I say, like, who stood out to you for this episode? It's always Ego. Ego's so impressive. Everything she's doing, she's clearly on the rise. But yet, most of her, I would say, compared to the other cast members, she's getting 43% of her screen time is happening after update. So it's interesting that it's, for us, we're the super fans. We're the ones that are going to watch all the way till 1 a.m. But, we may be a small segment of the SNL viewership. And I wonder if Ego, because she's getting so much screen time post update compared to everybody else, maybe it hits differently and she doesn't make as much of an impact because of that. Mike, did you want to comment on that?
One good thing to talk about with Ego is that she's so versatile and is in pre-tapes, in live sketches. She's in everything but update. So since she is in a lot of the show, that will probably be it will be indicated on this chart that, like you said, 43% after update is definitely notable. But I think it's because she's used all the time, where some of the people we're seeing at the top are only used in the first half of the show, and she's used in all of it. It is surprising, though. I would have thought that some of her more memorable sketches, like I think the last, was it the Nick Jonas show, that she had her pre-tape, the murder show pre-tape was in there, and also the
Dionne Warwick.
the Loco.
Okay, exactly, yeah.
And their Regé-Jean Page episode that's a pre-update example. But other than that, like the Dionne Warwick was after update, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So Dave, I guess, Dionne Warwick is her, if Ego stopped being on the show tomorrow, I think that's her big character that a lot of people are going to remember, even though we've only seen it twice. It's because, the stuff that's happened on social media and the interaction with Dionne Warwick, and it's been an impactful sketch. But the fact that they put it post update may be less meaningful to the overall public. Any comments on that or anything else you see on this chart?
Yeah, I mean, Ego is fantastic straight woman. She's a fantastic character player. So yeah, she does a lot of sketches and she writes a lot of sketches. That's where her wheelhouse is. I wish she was on update a lot more, because I know she has a lot of sketches, characters we haven't seen yet. Mikey sketches tend to go up front. Beck and Kate are always in the cold opening. Even if Baldwin or Jim Carrey were there, we tended to see Beck and Kate in them. That makes a lot of sense. Heidi's on the show throughout, and she does more update characters than anybody, her and Cecily. So that, again, makes sense.
And Dave, it's a great segue, because the next thing that we're going to talk about is Weekend Update. Because we want to know, basically, of all the cast members' screen time, how much of it is actually during Weekend Update. So let me bring that up for you guys to take a look at. All right, Mike. So a lot of numbers over here. We're going to talk a little bit about Weekend Update. So tell the viewers what they're looking at.
Sure. So we have the cast and we have how many appearances they've had on Update this season. Obviously, Jost and Jay have anchor Update together. They've been in all 14 episodes, so their number's 14. After that is their total screen time that they've had on Update. So again, Jost and Shays is going to be the same for the next column, which is their time for the entire season. And then I divide that by their update time by the total and get how much of their screen time is during update. And I'll point out, I did not include, for the sake of this podcast, the Village People backup dancers for that one, because it was, they didn't speak. They just were behind Keenan. So I didn't include that. So I subtracted that from their totals. It was 2 minutes and 43 seconds about, I think, was their the backup Village People. So they're not on here. I didn't include that, but everything else is their appearance on it, big or small. And then I did the same math I do for my rankings for the last column, just to see who was like really the true MVP of Update, other than the hosts.
Yeah, that looks like Heidi and Kate. They seem to come on, one of them at least once an episode.
So right here is it's ranked. I sorted it by the ranking, meaning that I'm counting appearances and screen time. So Kate has had the most screen time other than Che and Jost, but She's had less appearances than Heidi. Heidi's had the most with 5 this season.
Mhm.
Well, Dave, I think the crazy thing here is, we talked about Melissa and we said, like it's really hard to believe that Melissa is still at the bottom 5 of the rankings. But this is a crazy number that if you look in the column that's percentage of screen time, we have Melissa, and it's basically saying 25% of the time that she appears on SNL, she's on Update. And Heidi is 31% of the time she's on Update. So basically, these women who have been very unfortunately not given the roles in sketches that we would love to for them to get, they're actually trying to just make their way on Update compared to the sketches.
Yeah, I think that's where we tend to see them. That's where they tend to shine, is those update pieces. Kate, Keenan, Melissa, and Heidi all have recurring characters on Update that we love to see, and Mac and Cecily as well, and less extent to everybody else in the cast. You get Pete on as himself every once in a while, but he hasn't really done it all that much. But yeah, Melissa's things that you remember her for this year are her Update pieces. I'd say Heidi would be in that same boat, but she's so versatile in sketches as well that she's a go-to cast member in a lot of sketches. Even in the cold opens as well recently.
Yeah, Mike, here's an interesting question, and maybe it's a good point of conversation to really kick things off about this chart is, what would you say you would look for if you are a cast member who's on SNL? What percentage of your screen time is the right amount of screen time to be on Update? Like, I see Kate at 18%. Is that the right number? Like, should Heidi and Melissa be saying, okay, we only want 18% of our screen time to be on Update?
I'd look at the middle. I'd look at the median. I'd say, between 15 and 20 is good. I mean, I wouldn't, if I was in the cast, I'd want to be on Update. I definitely wouldn't say, oh, I want to be in more things and not be in Update. But you don't want it to be your only thing. But if you're really good at it, like Heidi and Melissa and Pete are they're always great on Update. So if you're getting a lot of time on that, I think that's absolutely fine. But yeah, I just look at the median. I'd say like where Pete is great. Like 16 and change where Pete is. That means he's in pre-tapes, he's in sketches, but he does make an impact when he's on Update. So I would probably look there. But I think Heidi and Melissa and Keenan. I mean, Keenan's in everything, but he's still about 20% on Update because they're just prolific Update sketch players. So they just show up on Update. We have Keenan and Melissa. Oh, sorry, Keenan and Kate at 4 and Heidi at 5. And Pete has appeared as himself 3 times, and Melissa has appeared as herself twice. So I count that as recurring parts.
Also, a lot of the recurring characters that happen on Saturday Night Live these days happen on Weekend Update. There's not a lot. There's a lot of sketch formats that get repeated, but there's not a lot of recurring characters that happen anymore in sketches. They're very far and few between, and most of them happen on Weekend Updates. So I imagine going forward for the rest of the season, if this truly is Pete's last run or Beck's last run or 80 or Kate or Keenan's last run, we're going to get a lot more of those Weekend Update characters coming back for their final hurrah, because that's where they live.
Yeah, definitely. And Mike, you said, between 15 and 20 is the right area that we're looking for. So just for anyone who's listening along, the people between 15 and 20, we have Bowen, who's 15 and a half. Chris is 15 and a half. Pete is about 16. Moffat is about 16. Cecily is 17. Kate is 18. Keenan is 19. And that would be it. So those would be the people that would be in that area. And that's something we should track as we move forward to see who's in between that 15 to 20% range next time we get together for all this. Okay, so what we're going to talk about next is, something we brought up before, which was that some cast members were not with us for the first half of the season. The main one being 80, who really only appeared in the premiere and then didn't premiere for the rest of 2020. And then we had her back for these 5 episodes. So Mike, one of the things that you put on Twitter, which you're a great follow because you put out all these stats that I find fascinating, is who was impacted the most by 80 returning to the show. So let me bring up that chart over here.
How fun.
Yeah.
So nerdy. I love it.
So, Mike, break this down for me. So let's talk about the average scores with 80 and without 80.
All right, so that's exactly what it is.
No, so tell me what's on the chart.
I took everyone's average in those episodes that she was in, like you said, the premiere, and then maybe like the past 5 or 6. And then I did the ones that she was not there for, and then compared them. So again, this is a percentage change that's on the far right column. And so these are the ones that were most impacted in a positive way of 80's absence. So this is these people were the winners for 80 not being there. I did that. I did this with Cecily. I did them with both of them. The couple episodes they were both off Studio 8H. So these are the cast members who got really a boom for having not 80 in the studio. So it's I don't think it'll surprise anybody that the top 4 are female cast members. We have Lauren being the biggest winner, having not competing with 80, and then Melissa, Heidi, and Kate behind her, and they're all decently significant. I mean, those 4 I just listed are all over 33% change.
Yeah, Dave, what stands out to you here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people on this chart: Lauren, Melissa, Heidi, Kate, Pete, Beck, and Cecily, and their impacts with and without 80.
Yeah, 5 out of 7 of them are women, so that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Lauren, everybody's comparing her, I guess, because of body type. We don't really have a sense of her personality yet, so we don't even know if her personality or her character is anything like 80's. But obviously, everybody would be comparing Lauren to 80 as a prospective replacement. So that makes a lot of sense. Melissa, obviously, also benefiting from the lack of Melissa and probably Cecily at the same time being missing. Would also get a lot more stage time. I'm surprised it has any effect on Peter Beck whatsoever, but it's very interesting that they're in there before, say, Chloe or anybody like that.
Yeah, Mike, do you have any other variables that could factor in why a Pete or Beck may be affected by an 80 appearing or not?
I mean, I just included them because for this exact reason, because it could spark conversation of why would that be impacted by 80, and maybe it's I have a chart in the works that I'll probably bring for next time of cast members who work together the most, and so I couldn't probably name a great Pete 80 combo sketch, so that could be maybe the reason is there's not a lot of work being done between 80 and Pete or maybe 80 and Beck, so when she's not there, maybe their pieces are get jumped up a little bit that they can make it to air.
Very interesting. Okay. All right. So let's talk. We attributed a lot of things to 80 returning and the different reasons why people would have been improving or declining in 2021. But let's talk about the appearances. And Mike, specifically, what is the chance of a cast member appearing in a given segment? We'll bring up those charts and we'll talk about them right now.
Cool. And while we wait, I'll also say that 80, Cecily, and Kate, who have been castmates together for 9 years, almost the longest tenure, not including Keenan and someone else, or Seth Meyers and Fred Armisen or something, is that I crunched this right before we went to air that Kate, 80, and Cecily averaged 16 minutes and 4 seconds of screen time per episode. Mm-hmm. So of the episode, that's 25% of a show. And Ego, Heidi, Melissa, Chloe, Lauren, and Punky, the other female cast members, averaged 13 minutes and 50 seconds, which is 22%. So if they leave, that means there's just such a vacuum for space right there, because Kate, 80, and Cecily, again, outweigh every other female cast member combined.
Yeah, for sure. So the numbers seem to track. So tell me, let's talk about appearances and the percentages. That's the chart that we have up on screen right now. Mike, tell me what you see over here.
Now, I base this on basically available appearances. So if you were available in the cast that week, I just combined all the segments that happened during those shows. So all the sketches and pre-tapes, plus all the weekend updates, monologues, and cold opens. So obviously, 80 Bryant, Cecily Strong, Keenan and Chris, who were off for 2 episodes that they weren't in studio. And then I just divided those. So this is basically telling us what is the likelihood that this cast member will appear in sketch X or segment X, because I included update and the monologue. And then at the top of the list, I think it will surprise no one, we have Keenan. So if you're listening and you can't see it, then I would say that if you turn on SNL and no matter what's happening, as long as it's not a musical performance, there is a 41% chance that Kenan Thompson will make an appearance.
Yeah, it seems obvious, but it is interesting to see, because 41% chance is a large number for a 20-person cast, that you know that in any given sketch, Keenan's going to appear 41% of the time. But this is a large list. Keenan, Beck, Cecily, Kate, and Ego are top 5. Bottom 5 is Melissa at 17.5. Then Lauren, Punky, and then Shay and Joe's 2 are on update. Dave, anything stand out to you on this list?
Well, obviously Keenan and Beck and Cecily and Kate all are the leads in a lot of sketches, and you got Ego and Mikey, who are so versatile that they're gonna be the sidekick in a lot of those sketches as well. I'm surprised. I'm surprised to see Heidi so low because she seems like she's everywhere, and Pete has really stepped up a lot this season in terms of screen time. And having more and more things to do, and actually having acting roles to do, and a lot of pre-tape. So I'm surprised he's as low as he is. But again, when you have Kate there and Cecily, I mean, there's just, those first 4, 5, 6 are so such strong performers, and such strong writers as well. They're going to knock it out of the park, and Keenan is just always a go-to, no matter what. He finds himself in a lot of sketches where he doesn't even need to be there for the screen time. He's just there to make sure the sketch doesn't go off the rails. It's surprising if he's going back and forth from taping Keenan to SNL, why they would plug him into a 6-person sketch where it's just 3 couples talking. But that's his value, is you can plug him into that kind of thing with 20 minutes of rehearsal. He's still gonna get all his laughs.
Yeah, it's such a great point. And I do think that this is if you are nerdy about stats and you want to see, okay, is a cast member doing well on a given night or not? You can print out this type of chart and take a look and basically do the math on your own. It's not a crazy thing to do, which is, okay, out of all the appearances tonight, I know we have some listeners who count the amount of appearances that a cast member was in on a given night. I think, Mike, this is a great cheat sheet for somebody to say, okay, if Keenan comes in on a given night at under 41%, maybe that's not a great night for him. Do you agree with what I'm saying?
Totally. I mean, it's definitely a way to just get to the easiest chart. It's just, I mean, it's basically betting odds. I could put money lines on this. Is before a sketch starts, who do you think's going to show up in this sketch or this segment, and with no knowledge of it, I think 80% or 90% of people listening would say, I'll bet on Keenan. Yeah, for sure. So I think that's great. And then I think if you're talking about the featured players, you do the same thing. If you see that Punky's appearing in more than 16% of the sketches in a given episode, then yeah, this may be trending up for her. So these are things to watch as we move forward.
I also think that 80 and Kyle being as low as they are, is
80 at 30.3 and Kyle at 22.6.
Well, not even there's that, but 80 at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th place, and Kyle in what looks like 10th place. As far as they've been on the show, they should be higher, but they're not. So I think that again, if you saw Keenan in 6th or 7th place, you'd be like, well, why is he still on the show? You know what I mean? So there's a reason Keenan's there, and looking at 20 years soon, because he's number 1 on this list.
Oh, for sure. And I think that, it's something for someone like Kyle to think about, only getting 22.6% of screen time, yet he's been around since 2013. So it's really a crazy sight. Mike, you sent me a related chart that I'm going to bring up. We'll talk about in a second.
Sure. And I'll point out about the previous one that it wasn't screen time based at all. It just X amount of segments that have been on this season, and then crossed with X amount of physical appearances they made in those segments. Mm-hmm. So some of those people have they had a very small appearance, and some people were the lead of it. Those were counted equally. So my overall ranking, we talked about the top of the show tonight, was factors in everything. So that, to me, that's like the true metric. You don't have to get into the numbers. You can just look at that and it'll tell you everything you need to know. But with that last chart, it's just that if there's a segment coming up, what are the chances this person's going to appear in any way physically, be on screen? So that's what that one was.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about this next one, Mike. Can you explain to me what we're seeing in this chart?
Sure. This is just two things right here, the cast member and a percentage. The percentage is if this person makes an appearance, what are the chances that they are the lead, or what I consider an A appearance, because I categorize them as A, B, C, and D. Lead, supporting, small, and off screen, and A is a lead. And this is right here is the chances that they will be the lead in a sketch. So this is not a great chart if you're a versatile player. This is a chart for if I'm coming out for this sketch, I'm the lead. So only cast member on here that's over 50% is Kate, which I think will surprise nobody. And at the bottom we have Lauren and Punky, who I think I've clocked them at maybe 1 or 2 leads all season.
Yeah, so we have Kate up at the top, 54.3, Cecily at 40.9, Beck at 40.7, Keenan at 36.1, and Ego at 32.6. Our bottom 5, Chloe, Alex, Dismukes, Punky, and Lauren. And Dave, you are the perfect person to show a chart like this too, in my opinion, because you've written sketches before, correct?
Yeah, I've done a lot of sketch shows.
Exactly. So this is the thing. Like, this is almost like if you took this, this chart is a representation of who the writers are writing for. So every time that they sit down on a Monday or a Tuesday, right late into the night on a Tuesday, and then get together and go through read through on Wednesday, 54.5% time that they're reading a Kate sketch, it's written for Kate. So I think this is an indication on who the writers seem to enjoy writing for. And because of that, I would love you to break this down for us.
Yeah, I'm also seeing a lot of people that write for themselves in the middle of the list. So you got people like Pete, Mikey, Chris, and Bowen, who tend to write things for themselves in the middle of the pack. So yeah, it looks like the top of the pack are getting a lot of help from the writing staff.
Yeah, Mike, you want to touch on that a little bit? Because I think that basically what this would indicate, as Dave is saying, is that when you write for yourself, but then also have the added benefit of having these writers write for you, it's like it boosts you up this list.
Of course, and I agree. Dave's the perfect person to ask for this, because it's if you write for yourself, do you enjoy having yourself be a supporting role? Like, Mikey is always, when him and Streeter write together, it seems like Mikey is reacting to things, and that's like the sketch. So he's the lead of the sketch. Say that again.
I wonder where generic host would be on this list.
That's a great one. I can definitely get that for you.
Because you have a lot of hosts that can carry their own sketches, like a Dan Levy, and then you've got a lot of hosts like I'm trying to think of somebody else who is.
I think I had John Mulaney had the highest host score this season.
Right. Yeah, and maybe someone like Issa Rae, who probably wasn't the lead in a lot of the sketches. Which
I think Issa Rae had the lowest score of all the hosts this season. So great point.
Yeah. So I wonder if that. I'm curious where generic host would be in here, because someone like a Mikey Day writes for the host. So that Mikey can play second banana to the host in those sketches, which is not a bad track to take. That's what Seth did a lot in a lot of his early years, is write for him to support the host, which is not a dumb way to go about it.
Yeah, for sure. And Dave, I believe that Andrew Dismukes is from your neck of the woods, and yeah, exactly. And he's a writer. He was a writer on the staff before he was a cast member, but he's at the bottom of the list. So what do you attribute that to?
He's a stand-up that is, I think SNL's probably his first sketch experience whatsoever. So I think he probably had I am waiting for that Weekend Update segment where we get to kind of learn who Andrew's sense of humor is, because he is one of the most original stand-ups I've ever seen live. He is very weird, and offbeat, and certainly a great replacement for Kyle. Eventually, I think those 10-to-1 sketches are going to be dominated by Andrew in the next couple years. So he will be writing for himself eventually, but right now he seems to be playing second fiddle to the Good Neighbor guys.
Yeah, see, that's such a great point and great insight from you that we wouldn't get from anyone else, which is, Andrew is a great case study for this episode of By the Numbers, where we see he has basically a 91% increase in ranking to the second half of the year. And we are seeing him mostly in those 10-to-1 roles. The numbers support exactly what you're saying. But with regards to what his style is as a cast member and where people are going to remember him on the show, that we still haven't seen yet.
Yeah, he's got like a very Dimitri Martin kind of stand-up persona. We're very offbeat, very weird, very like, ooh, you're coming from a different place than all of us. I can't wait for that to come across. I hope he gets that chance to shine. There's a lot of people that come to Saturday Night Live that they were brilliant at Second City or brilliant stand-ups, and what they ended up doing on Saturday Night Live had nothing to do with what got them there. I think Horatio Sanz would be the number one person on my list for that, who, when I saw him live at Second City, was the most, you just couldn't believe that there was somebody who can improvise like that. It seemed like his comedy's coming from another planet, and he never got, maybe a couple times in those Frederick sketches.
Right.
We got a little sense of what Horatio is capable of doing in front of a live audience, but never got like his due on Silent Live of like, y'all don't even know how good Horatio could be.
That's fascinating.
It goes the same way right now. Ego's one woman show came to Austin Sketchfest a couple years ago, and she did an hour solid of maybe a dozen characters, none of which I've seen on Silent Live.
Okay. Well, and there's going to be, as Mike said, this huge vacuum, I believe, coming into next year and maybe into the following year too. So these are two players that you're telling us, giving us the insider information that they have a lot of stuff that they have in their back pockets that they're ready to show. And I can't wait to see it. But here's what we're going to do. So basically, guys, this is what we do on the By the Numbers show. We give you all the information. We give you the stats. Mike breaks them down. And then we did something fun last time. We played a little bit of a game, and Dave wasn't with us, so now we get to bring Dave into our game, which is very similar to daily fantasy. So if you're not a daily fantasy player, this is how it works. We're going to give you a $25 budget. We're going to let you know how much each cast member costs, and then you're going to have to put together your cast with however many players you would like, but it has to fit within budget. Mike, did I explain that correctly?
That's right.
Okay, perfect. Let me bring that up on screen. So, Mike, have the values changed at all since the last time we did this?
They have subtly, but do you want me to tell you what the differences are, or do you want to?
Yeah, so let's go through them, and then let me read them out for everybody who wants to play along, who's listening on audio. So at the $5 level, we have Beck, 80, Kate, and Keenan. At the $4 level, we have Mikey, Jost, and Che, who are not together. You can purchase them individually. Cecily as well at $4. At $3, we have Pete, Heidi, Kyle, and Ego. At $2, we have Chloe, Moffat, Chris, and Bowen. And then at $1.50, our lowest value, we have Dismukes, Lauren, and Punky, and then Melissa. So, Mike, what are the changes between last time and this time?
We had Keenan and 80 go up, had Mikey go up, and I think that's it. It was a pretty subtle change. I brought Jost down, so now Jost and Che are even. I think it's just based on in the season 46A portion that Jost was always entertaining the desk piece, so he was just dominating screen time. So it's kind of leveled out a little bit. We've had some shorter updates and had a little more equity with Jost and Che entertaining the guest. So now that they're about even now. So Jost moved down, Mikey moved up, and Keenan and 80 moved up.
Right. So basically what we're saying, guys, is that if you were listening to our last podcast and you purchased a Keenan or an 80 at $4, they're much more expensive now. So that was a good buy. If you were going to sell them now. Same thing with Mikey, who moved up from $3 to $4. But if you purchased Colin Jost because you're like, oh, I got to have Colin. Well, he's actually down now. So it's worth purchasing Colin now at $4, maybe if he goes back up to $5. So all interesting things to think about. We're going to put this out on Twitter as well. So you can send us your cast based on these values, but I think we gave Dave enough time. So Dave, do you have a cast that you would like to pitch to us based on this dollar values?
So is this like for season 47, or is this like you guys are done, don't even come back for the rest of the season?
What would you like it to be?
I guess season 47, because I want people to get their last shows.
All right, let's do it.
All right. First, I'm going to go and get my main core women, because I think having a strong female nucleus to your cast is so very important. And so I'm going to lock in Cecily, Heidi, and Ego right off the bat. I think that's a triumvirate that you cannot beat in terms of talent and versatility. I'm going to just take all the number twos. So that's 4 for Cecily, 3 for Heidi and Ego. I'm going to take all the number twos. You got Chloe, Alex, Bowen, and Chris. Easy pickups for the twos. I'm going to pick up Mikey for the writing. And I'm going to grab Andrew and Punky off the low list. And I'm going to throw Alex. And since I lose Jost and Shay, I'm going to throw Alex and Punky on the weekend update desk.
That's very interesting. Okay, that's different than what we had previously. So just read out just one more time everybody who is on your cast.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So I've got a 10-person cast. I'm going to say goodbye to a lot of the old guard because I'm ready to move on. I'm going to keep just like very important people that I think are core from those senior cast members. So I've got Cecily, Heidi, Ego, Mikey, Chloe, Alex, Bowen, Chris Red, Dismukes, and Punky.
It's great cast, great calls.
You got still have Alex in there for Biden. He's going to do double duty on Biden and Waken Update, and Punky is going to also do double duty on Kamala and Update.
That's interesting. Okay, Mike, I don't remember exactly what your cast was last time, but give me your cast this time. Is there anyone that do you want to play the game, or do you want to just tell me who you would like to pick from the list?
I mean, I'm a little biased because I know the values of the dollars, but I also base it on I guess I'll ask Dave. I mean, is there anyone you did not pick solely because you believe they will not be there next season?
No, not solely. I think the hardest cut for me was Che, because I love Michael Che, but I think the Jost Che era is over, and I'm ready to move on to the new guard. And I think that is part of that is letting go of Kyle and Beck and Adi and Kate and Keenan and Jost and Che. But I am too enamored with Cecily to ever let her go, and she becomes my new Keenan.
All right, fair enough. So I played the game as between now and the finale because we're basing the show on this season, and so I'm going to play it based on what I think the numbers are telling me. The numbers don't lie. I'm not playing favorites. I'm just playing on what I think the data has told us thus far. So my team is Kate and Beck because they dominate basically every show. I mean, if I'm going to spend my $5, I'm going to spend it on Kate and Beck. And then I bypassed. I think I might have done this last time, John, when we played with Andy. But I bypassed the second tier, the $4 range. I got my value in the threes, so I picked Ego, Pete, and Heidi. That's 3 out of the 4 in the third tier. And then I picked up Chloe and Bowen, who are entering year 3 next year. If we're playing, along the lines with what Dave said, it still works. And for this season, I like Chloe and Bowen and Chris. So I strayed away from the $4 and the second tier and the last tier, which is the 150s. They're great value because they have so much upshot. But I'm going to go into the threes and couple twos, couple fives. So again, that's Kate McKinnon, Beck Bennett, Ego Wodum, Pete Davidson, Heidi Gardner, Chloe Feynman, Bowen Yang, and Chris Red. That's my squad I'm going with.
Yeah, it's a good squad too, and I think that I don't remember exactly the people that I picked last time, but I think I picked 7, which is kind of crazy. Maybe it was 8 or 7 because I love smaller casts in general. I'm just looking at the list. I don't think I can do that this time. I'm gonna redo this and then I'm gonna mark it down. I'll remember for next time exactly what I did this time. So I divided it into my female cast and my male cast, trying to get to 25. And here's my female cast. So I'll start at the beginning. The new players that I want to see sticking around, females, I got Punky and Chloe. Those are our 2 feature players that I've seen a lot from Chloe. I'm so impressed with her. I want to see more from Punky. I have to decide between Lauren and Punky. I just really don't know anything about Lauren, unfortunately, and I hope to learn that in the next 6 episodes. That's like one of my big things. Give me something from Lauren besides one update piece. So that would be that. And then I chose Heidi and Ego, who I think are really, the future of the show. They kill everything they do. And so my 4 females that I have for my cast of 9 is Chloe, Ego, Heidi, and Punky. So those are my females. Then my males. So I have Keenan sticking around. I'm just a big Keenan guy. I've always been. I have no problem keeping him there. If he sticks around, another 20 years, so be it. I love hearing from Keenan. And then I kept Che. I really felt like it was, I think Che is at the point now, and I never would have said this when he started, but I think he's at the point now where I could see him anchoring update by himself. And I think that may be the direction we're heading. If we lose Colin this year, is we're going to open up 47 with Che anchoring update by himself. So I'm okay to keep him around as my update. And then I have 3 other guys that are sticking around with us. And that would be Pete, who I never would have said before season 46, but I love this reinvigorated Pete, the one that everyone's saying deserves an Emmy, the one that's doing all these crazy characters. Give me that version of Pete moving forward. Give me Moffat to play Biden, and give me Dismukes. And Dave, I know you're going to smile at that, but I really, I love to see that moving forward. I picked a cast of 9 with 3 featured players and, a couple veterans and a couple middle of the pack. I really, there's some age diversity here, and there's a lot of interesting people to move forward with this. So that's my cast of 9: Punky, Heidi, Ego, Chloe, Alex Moffat, Andrew Dismukes, Pete, Keenan, and Che. So that would be my cast of 9 moving forward. Mike, any thoughts?
Well, I'll ask you what I asked Dave. Is this going by the remainder of season 46, or is this for this is your future bet?
Look, it's really hard to answer that question because, like, for example, you have someone like Bowen, who I do think is absolutely fantastic, and it's like, where do you fit a Bowen in? I'm not ready to lose Bowen. So when I say like this is my cast that I'm choosing, I'm not saying, hey, everyone else deserves to be kicked off to the show. That's not what we're saying at all. We're just saying, if we gave you a hypothetical, here's $25, here's the cast you have to pick. I think this is the cast that I see as versatile, that I would love to see moving forward, that I think would produce killer episodes, whether that be at the end of 46 or into 47. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
I think both of you guys have great squads.
Exactly. So look, it's up on screen for anyone who's watching on YouTube to write down the values. If you're listening along, I hope you did as well. I'll read it out one more time for anyone else who wants to play the game. We're going to post this on Twitter as well to get your responses. Send us your casts. I know Mike loves to see them. So $5 value, we got Beck, 80, Kate, and Keenan. 4 is Mikey, Colin, Che, and Cecily. 3 is Pete, Heidi, Kyle, and Ego. $2, Chloe, Moffat, Chris, and Bowen. $1.50 is Dismukes, Lauren, Punky, and Melissa. So let us know what you think for those cast members. Yeah, and that will do it for the By the Numbers show. Let me start with asking Dave, do you feel like you learned something tonight?
Oh, for sure. I learn everything all the time.
Well, we were really excited to have you on the show. We always love hearing from Auntie Hogland as well, but yeah, it's really cool to have somebody else on the show to break down the numbers with, who's nerdy about SNL like all of us. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening in Texas with, you have a sketch festival coming up?
We have Austin Sketch Fest. Normally it's in person. We've had some amazing Austin Sketch Fests. We've had Tim Robinson. We've had Paul F. Tompkins come down for Sketch Fest. We had Anthony Tamanik and James Adomian do a Trump versus Biden debate last year. But last year, since the pandemic happened, we went online. So this year we're going to do an online sketch festival out of Cold Town Theater. It's on our Twitch channel, Cold Town TV. Twitch.tv/Coldtown TV, and we have Meg Stalter and Atsuko Akatsuka and a podcast from Kevin Pollack and Craig Kikowski, as well as troops from UCB and Second City and Improv Olympic and West Side Comedy Theater, and all over Austin as well. So sketch comedy galore. It's April 22nd through the 25th on Twitch. Cold Town's channel. And you can also support Cold Town Theater's mission. We're going to try to get a new space. We lost our space in October from the pandemic, but we're going to get a new space for next year. So if you're interested in helping us out, you can always check us out at Cold Town, COLDTOWNE, and throw us a couple bucks on PayPal or join a Patreon. Actually, probably be a lot better on Patreon to get something for your money and help us out, help us find a new space.
Yeah, we really hope that a lot of people do, and I can't wait to watch the sketch festival. I think that's it's always fun to check out everything you have going on. And then, Dave, if people want to reach out to you or see what you're up to on social media, where can people check out your Twitter and stuff?
Oh, at Dave Buckman.
Okay.
Please check me out on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or Messenger. I'm responsive. Or check out at Cold Town as well. COLDTOWNE.
Great. And once again, with everything that happened in Texas over the last few weeks, so happy that you and your family are okay. So thank you for coming back on the show and really glad to hear that. Mike, so, in the last couple of months, you started up your own Twitter account where you've been posting some of the data that we've been producing on the shows. And it's really cool that people can now reach out to you directly. Can you tell our listeners about that?
Sure. I am. You can reach me on Twitter at SNL Mike Murray. So you can find me on there. If you have a specific question, I typically can give you the answer, especially if it's based on this season. So I'm posting, a lot of data on there, and I'm always looking for new angles to take to find stats that, don't exist anywhere else in the world. That's the whole goal that I've been doing, is to create, as John said at the top of the show, like a completely objective, completely accurate depiction of what we're seeing on the show. Whether that passes the eyeball test or not is why we do these kind of shows, because it's fun to talk about. So you can find me on there. And I post, some SNL history and SNL videos. I'm planning on making some best ofs of this season for each of the cast members. So you can find me on there and see them, because it's fun to we talk about SNL in a very macro way. It's been on for over 900 episodes now. So it's fun to really dive deep into this season, because it's going to go by and we're going to call it the COVID season, and it'll be done and we'll move on. So I want to really, appreciate what we're seeing now, and we'll look back and hopefully next year we're doing this podcast and we'll see what's changed. But you can find me on there, and I'll post the full rankings of each episode, and in between I'll post other stats that I find.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike, for all that you do to help us out. It's really appreciative, and you can reach out to him at SNL Mike Murray for all of those statistics, like we said, for everything that's going on in SNL Stats. So if you missed it at the beginning, I'm just going to say it one more time. We had a great show with the superfans last week. If you love digital shorts, I know I do. I was super jealous I wasn't on this show, because I love talking about the digital shorts. I don't know. I think the digital shorts changed my life, but we could talk about that another time, just because of the impact that they've had on me and my versions of some of the digital shorts that are deep down the internet rabbit hole at this point. But that's a great show if you want to check it out, to talk about them and hand out some awards. And I am so excited for the next show we are going to be doing next week. So like I said, next Sunday, March 21st, join us on the SNL YouTube channel at 8 p.m. Eastern. We have two teams competing against each other in SNL trivia. It's going to be really fun. We have James Stevens and Sammy K hosting. hosting. I'll be around there. I'll be producing the show. And, we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some great banter about the different eras of the show and test out. We have 6 players come into play in the different rounds to see how well they know SNL trivia. And there will be some games happening in the chat as well. So I think it's a fun time for any SNL fan. If you love the shows we are producing and you check them out every week, or if this is your first time joining us, please give us a follow at SNL Stats on Twitter or Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube or any podcatcher. It really helps people find the show. So I'm really appreciative of all of that. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that we now have a club on Clubhouse, which is exciting. So if you've been on Clubhouse before, or you don't know what it is basically a social audio app where people can, have conversations in different rooms. And we have a bunch of our personalities from SNL Stats all on Clubhouse right now. You just search SNL Superfans on Clubhouse. Join our club. We're going to be there. When they announce the new hosts that are coming up, we'll be there to talk about them. So it's very, very exciting that we're on Clubhouse. Please join us there. We also have some alumni of the show who are in our club, so it'll be fun to talk to them as well. So for everybody who's joined us tonight, we thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Have a great week, everybody. Talk to you soon.
But we're here for the numbers as well. So let's get statistical, so unpredictable here on SNL.